Hi, back in 1989, I had been hit by a car in March. For the next few months that I was in the hospital, several books and magazines came out that I had been published, and one of these was Masks number 3. And it was the first book, actually, that had my name somewhere there on the back cover, Wayne Allen Sally, third down from the bottom. And the story's called I had called it Rail Rider, and Jerry Williamson changed it to Third Rail, and long story there. But then when it got reprinted in Years Best Horror, it was called Rail Rider again. A few years later, Innovation Comics went ahead and adapted it, beautifully painted by Michael Okamoto, and in a few months, there'll be a reprinted version of that story, along with several others from the Innovation imprint. So I thought I'd read to you Third Rail as it appears here. And it was interesting because there I am in the hospital trying to get some of the doctors and such to notice that, yes, indeed, there I am. First time ever my name appearing on the back cover of a book. And it was about the only time they kind of said, oh, it's not making it up because he's doped on Demerol or something like that. So here you go, Third Rail. Chloe Hesse watched Rain's blue Civic head back toward the Kennedy on-ramp. Then he turned, zippering his jacket as he took down escalator steps two at a time to the concourse leading to the L train. The Kennedy overpass was deserted, and he stood for several minutes staring out at the 8 lanes of weekend traffic, 4 on each side of the Jefferson Park Congress Douglas Rapid Transit line. Then he noticed the girl. Before looking at her a second time, Chloe, time-scheduled commuter that he was, glanced north, saw that the train was nowhere near arriving at the terminal. He'd been chilled crossing the parking lot, yet the girl below him was wearing only a pair of jeans and a white sweater that clung tight to her waist. I'm not going to edit this out. This is how I'm going to read this tonight, okay? It's winter. Live with it. Okay. They would say in the Huddle House Bar and Grill in Nashville, deal with it when you're in there eating and the grill is on fire. Okay, the girl only a pair of jeans and a white sweater that clung tight to her waist. A loose gilded belt completed the image. Cliched as it was, she looked as if her body had been poured into her clothing. The sweater was pushed up around her elbows. Maybe he'd offer her his gloves after he'd handled business. Chloe walked briskly down the glass and stainless steel corridor to those stairs leading down to the L platform. It was after 10 p.m. The ticket agent's booth was closed. He'd have to pay on the train and took a second to make certain he had the small bills. The conductor wouldn't be able to break a 20. Chloe never carried a comb, so he ran a hand through his thin blonde hair. Not that it would matter in the sharp late September wind. Pushed through the gate and took the down escalator. Halfway to the platform, he caught a flash of the girl's sweater, a creamy slice of arm. As cold as it was, and my, how the hair on her arms danced. Chloe had been disappointed to leave Rain's place so early, but he'd had a 2-hour trek on public transportation to the southwest side ahead of him. He'd enjoyed Rain and Peg's company and likely wouldn't see him again until Lila Cheney's party in Virginia next February. Yet seeing the girl on the platform made him momentarily forget the last few hours. As Chloe's shoes clacked onto the concrete, she turned to look at him. He met her gaze, and she glanced away quickly. She didn't seem concerned about whether the train was coming. She didn't seem impatient to her movements. and after the first 5 minutes, Close had watched her from the corner of his eye. She hadn't once leaned out over the tracks, as most people, himself included, usually did. He looked at the digital clock on the Northern Trust Bank across from the Kennedy. 53 degrees at 11:09. It was if he was ever going to strike up a conversation with the girl, he'd have to do it now. The train would be there by quarter after. Walking the 10 or so steps to where she was standing, Close, he jammed his fists into his pockets, realizing just as he neared her that he was wearing a spring jacket, that he'd sound pretty damn stupid offering her his gloves when he'd left them on his coat rack back in his apartment. Embarrassed, he swung away. The platform rumbled. He turned to stare north. It was only a plane leaving from O'Hare a mile away. Close, he whistled tunelessly and rubbernecked. The sign above him read, "Board here for trains to Loop and to West Side." The dull white neon lights flickered. The clock at the bank now said 52 degrees at 11:11. 7-Up. Nothing more. No Captain Morgan, anything like that. A huge tanker truck obscured the red neon Monoconi restaurant sign as it made a wide turn into the parking lot of Dominic's. Sighing, Close, he began watching for signs of life in one of the lighted upper floors of an office building to the far side of I-90's left lanes. When he turned again, the girl was gone. Close, he glanced up at the escalators. From where he stood, he saw the bottom 15 steps of the two stairwells, with the escalator in the middle before they disappeared out of sight behind the overhead ads for Camel filters and Salem lights. He was still surprised by how well kept and graffiti-free the Yale station was. Then close, he saw a blurred flash of color. The girl was riding the rails on the up escalator. He smiled, amazed. Slipping back into sight from above, she'd slide down nearly to the bottom before stopping, and glide back up again. Close, he watched her straddle the moving stairwell a half-dozen times, saw her ride up in a kind of swimming side stroke. She was gorgeous. Her sweater had hiked up over her hip, exposing more flesh, and her hair fell across her face. She turned to stare at Close. He winked. He touched his collar, glanced away at the bank clock again, too flustered even to notice the time. He looked back, and again she was gone from sight. Close heard whistling and catcalls from above, male voices. The voices came nearer, accompanied by the sound of sneakers on the concrete stairs. Close, he calculated 4 separate voices, fretted for the girl. All 4 men were slick-backed hair. He saw when they reached bottom. All wore lime green fall windbreakers. Each carried a bag of some kind. They walked closer. Behind them, the girl slid back down the rail. She stared at the men, but with boredom. Once they had reached the glare of the sodium lamps close, he realized why the girl wasn't afraid of them. And for what seemed like the 12th time that night, he felt extremely stupid. They weren't gang members. The jackets advertised Shoestack's Tavern. The 4 guys were a Polish bowling team. Within minutes, the southbound train pulled in. The bowlers got on, heading toward Milwaukee Avenue, and Close, he was certain of that. He glanced at the time, 11:18. Still plenty of time to catch the Archer bus downtown. He'd wait around to see what the girl was going to do. She seemed to be in no hurry to leave. Maybe she was waiting for Closey to make his move. The southbound train was now far in the distance. The girl hadn't come back down the escalator since the train was in the station. Closey, inching closer to the stairwell and her, heard a shuffling sound from the concourse above. Probably her boyfriend showing. He saw something white lying flat on one of the escalator steps lowering to the platform. white with splashes of red. Descending, red nails on a girl's hand, red veins at the wrist. Descending, catching on the edge of the platform grill and flipping up, her hand severed at the wrist, hideous in the green glow seeping up from below the escalator's bowels, creating a ghastly cast of shadows from her dead veins and finger joints. Then her corpse followed, riding the rail down, lines of blood sprayed across the chrome. Her eyes, forever open, still had the bored look like she had given the bowlers. Then, also riding the rail down, toward Clohessy, the man with the knife. And that was the story from Masks number 3. 1989. Terry Williamson was a great editor. And it's Mort Castle who's the one involved with keeping this thing going on with the reprints. And I'm forever grateful for his help in moving my career along. And I'll let you go on this Sunday evening, a couple of days before our big blizzard. Bye.